Sudah jam 1 pas ini. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this Wednesday forum, the first Wednesday forum during the Ramadan month. So for me, happy Ramadan. Hopefully you can get spiritual benefit from the spiritual process and soul pilgrimage during the Ramadan. And also happy Kartini Day for all women in Indonesia and also in the world, because regardless the very dynamic discussion on feminism in Indonesia, Kartini, by the way, is become the cornerstone for Indonesian, especially Indonesian women, to further their position. And we thus far, again, regardless the complicated issue, complicated situation, thus far Indonesian women having more space to express themselves. And that's exactly the point we are going to discuss this afternoon. We invited Ida Fitri Astuti from Indonesian Consortium for Religious Studies that will present her research finding. The research project is a tandem research with me, conducted last year from, I think, May to August, if I'm not mistaken, by Ida, 4 months of research, and invited as well 10 local researchers in 10 cities. And also we learn from 4 clusters of women. But anyway, I'm not going to take over by Ida's presentation, but just to welcome you in this Wednesday forum. The Wednesday forum is entitled "Vulnerable but Maneuverable." This is very interesting title: Women, Religion, and COVID-19. If you're interested more in this project, our report is already published, and I can share later on in chat box the link, and also asking Mas Aziz to share as well in YouTube, in our YouTube channel. So as usual, our presenter Mbak Ida will present about 30 to 45 minutes of presentation. Then she's follow up with question and answer. You may put your question in chat box, or you can simply raise hand in the Zoom meeting, or I ask Mas Aziz if somebody want to comment or respond in YouTube channel. And I will please render it to me, and I will present it to all of you, and then Mbak Ida will respond, and somehow I will also become the respondent of that discussion. So Mbak Ida is officer in Indonesian Consortium for Religious Studies. She graduated from International Relations from Universitas Gadjah Mada, and furthermore, she graduated MA degree from the Center for Religious and Cross-Cultural Studies, CRCS, also in Gadjah Mada. And she was, in 2015, she was also Asia Research Institute Fellows of the National University of Singapore. And presently, she works in ICRS as the Partnership and Engagement Officer for Indonesian Consortium for Religious Studies. Without further ado, please, Mbak Ida, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Leo. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining with us here in Wednesday Forum. And thank you juga for Aziz, who organizing this forum, and also the committee behind the scene, who inviting me to present our research that conducted by Dr. Leonard Epafras and me with local researchers from 10 cities. I would like to share my PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint here?
Yeah, please, Mbak.
Okay. This is, I think this is very timely, as we know that today, like Pak Leo said, that we are now commemorating Kartini's birthday 142 years ago. And this is interpreted as like a milestone of the rise of women's empowerment spirit, yeah. And the paper is the outcome of a cluster of 4-month research project from May to August 2020, entitled Reshaping Urban Living, Indonesian Women and Coronavirus, under the umbrella project of religion and COVID-19, organized by the Indonesian Consortium for Religious Studies, or ICRS, and the Center for Religious and Cross-Cultural Studies, or CRCS, Universitas Gadjah Mada. And this research funded by the Ford Foundation and Hibah Receptivity from the Ministry of Research, Technology and Higher Education of the Republic of Indonesia. And it could not have been possible without the support of our researchers in 10 cities. There are 4 ICR students, Mbak Aliuna Pratisti from Bandung, and then Mbak Jessie Ismoyo from Salatiga, Morisa Zinira from Yogyakarta, Mas Eresto from Madiun, and then 5 researchers from Malang, Lintang, Mbak Lintang, and then from Aceh, Teku Jafar, Subandri Simbolong from Pontianak, and also the father Max Rigus from Manggarai, and also one more from Manado, Denny Pinontoan, and also our informants from Denpasar who have shared their experiences through FGDs. And I'm sorry, can you see my PowerPoint? Still can see my PowerPoint?
Yes, Mbak.
Okay, sorry. This research attempts to understand women's condition and their maneuver among social spaces that shape urban living during the pandemic. And the investigation is also from the role of religion, both in reimagining women's status and also the element of shaping women's space. And the methods is, because this is the time is in pandemic time, so the research applied the hybrid media space methods, focus on the condition of social spaces and practices among the private, semi-private, and public, and also online and offline, domestic and communal governance. So we conducted workshop, expert meetings, and then FGDs, and also interviews by telephone and also WhatsApp conversation. And the workshop on research tools, we conducted this research to give briefing and enrichment workshop related to the use of research tool, including maximum use of Google Keep, Google Drive, Google Meet, and then Google My Maps, and also the Google Docs. And the expert for this workshop is Pak Leo. He is the expert of this kind of research tools. Experts meeting conducted before the research begins to gain insight and guidance, so that this research contributes to existing studies and maybe adds to those that not yet studied. And the technique of data collection and analysis are included literature studies, interviews, focus group discussion, social media and internet observation intensities, which are Bandung, Banda Aceh, Denpasar, Madiun, Malang, Pontianak, Ruteng-Labuan Bajo, Salatiga, Tomohon-Manado, and also Yogyakarta. as is it move? Sorry, Pak.
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Yes.
Now?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Maybe you just open. Yeah. Maybe you can use this rather than a
Okay.
full screen. Yeah. Much
Okay.
easier to control.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, this one, right? Pak Leo?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we collect insights from 68 women from those 10 cities. They were divided into 4 clusters of conservation: women workers, social religious women activists, women in religious minority group, and women with disability. They are aged from 24 to 57 years old, working in different sectors from household wives to academics. And in terms of religious preferences, those consisted of 35 Muslims, 15 Christians, 10 Catholics, 5 Hindus, 1 Buddhist, and 2 indigenous religion. And among the Muslims, there were the representatives from a religious minority group from Ahmadis. And the selection of women workers was more or less as those reflecting the most affected group by the pandemic. Meanwhile, the other 3, social religious women activists, women in religious minority group, and women with disability are the group gaining less attention in many researchers. And those furthermore are more relevant to our main concern in understanding the relationship between religion and COVID-19. The cluster division was not rigid, as we know that we also encounter overlapping categories between social religious activists, women workers, and etc. And the research question is how Indonesian women respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The second, how Indonesian women maneuvering among spaces between public, domestic, and virtual might shape new urban living during the post-pandemic. During and post-pandemic, we assume that this research will we assume that the pandemic will be end soon that at that time, but now we know that this pandemic is still going on. And the third question, how does religion reimagine Indonesian women and women's status within the context of pandemic? And the fourth, how religion shapes women religiosity within the context of pandemic. And now we come to the hypothesis. In terms of social position, women are vulnerable. They were challenged from the reproductive health as the governmental program of family planning almost solely relied on women, and to economic downturn that affected the government and as well education sector, and which was dominated by women. Besides, they are exposed to domestic violence and multiple burden as the consequence of work and school from home. And this is the main argument. Indonesian women display resilience and become the agent of domestic and social cohesion. They also shape the urban living through their inter-spatial performance, including in the virtual realm that now they are facing. Despite extra challenges faced by women with disabilities, they maintain creativity and found new meanings of social solidarity. And the data analysis, we have a 4 cluster here for the women workers. they face economic challenge in different degrees, and also extra burden to handle domestic and also the regular jobs. And especially for the health workers, the most worrisome is become the potential transmitter of the virus to their own families at home. And for the single women, their challenge is to feature that undecided and the deduction of their payrolls. And for social religious women activists, they were adjusting their strategy to the limitation of movements without surrendering the substance of the humanitarian actions. And also they generating and implementing new ideas using safe mediums for personal health and in line with the health protocols. Also extracting social and humanitarian concern that had not yet appeared before the pandemic, and use this action to trigger social change and to appropriate it with the existing patriarchal culture in that area. For women in religious minority group and also women with disability, they are experience greater challenge during the pandemic, besides the stigma of disabled people who are unable to carry out certain activities. So they then engage actively in social solidarity, and this is ensure their existence. Then their existence of their own condition forms a deep and root spirituality, which in turn help them cope with the pandemic. These are the findings. First is cohesive agency and resilience building. We have a domestic versus public life here. Important changes from women workers turn into household cooks, and then nutritionists, food security maintainers, home teachers, husband psychological counselors, and others that might split between domestic and public space assignment be disappeared. In a private life, multiple roles carried by many household women during the pandemic suffered their private lives, such as the disappearance of me time, which carry with its like a roller coaster emotional posture, in particular to those with limited domestic space. In economic, their mastery of gadgets for general communication made them as a new digital entrepreneurship. And in religion, elevate themselves in a religious landscape and maintaining stronger relationship among the family members. And in societal elements, actively involved in social solidarity and the creation of sporting groups, collective production of personal protective equipment, for example, and also maskers, etc. And then also creating new social space, like a homeschooling. And then other findings, still in a cohesive agency and resilience building, women in minority groups, as we studied an Ahmadi women in West Java and also Sunda Wiwitan in West Java also, and also in Banda Aceh in Hakka women's. Another findings is inter-spatial performance. We know that it's like a present and distant matter. The women embracing different modes of presence in space and also virtual or distant space that become a continuum in order to survive low-income household compel some women to appear in the virtual world. And it's like a fortnight transformation to digital women entrepreneurs they were becoming street vendors and tobacco middlewomen and online sellers for basic foods. Household economy remain vulnerable, which in many cases force women to rearrange their domestic and external affairs. And after months of pandemic, many issues are settled down, and some of earlier, such as the debate, polemic, and conducted offline and online worship. Nonetheless, some are still persistent, and also the women activists in Manggarai creating the network of social solidarity, providing social spaces for the victims of domestic violence, and creating mixed online and offline entrepreneurship to support the member of the community. Still in Manggarai, women in social activism, religious-based communities in Catholic nuns, Manggarai, and hard workers also in Salatiga demonstrated resilience in the pandemic as they found more spiritual empowerment and meaningful life. They align their job with religious values. And for the women with disabilities during the pandemic, what is remain the same is generally unfriendly to them, to the disabled and people with disabilities. In terms of social space, many of them need personal assistance for mobility and other necessities, which in turn, physically distancing is difficult to implement. And the accessibility to the house of worship is not yet settled for them. Most of them remain at the peripheral of the sacred spaces. And then other findings is about between commonality and incommensurability, especially for women with the disabilities. They are still dealing with the limited attention of religious authority in meaning making a women's role and performance in the context of pandemic even more problematic for the disabled and women with disabilities. And in general, religious institutions do not provide discourse infrastructure to address this incommensurability. And then as the incommensurability seen from how the social and religious hesitant to deal with the disabled and individuals with disabilities, they, as we know, they was often connected with negative sense related to the discourse of purity and pollution, even with morality and sin, which as social scapegoat violence toward them was part of divine sanction and the process of social reintegration. And also in a positive sense or positive cultural imagination, for example, people with disabilities holding esoteric power, modern discourse mainly informed by medical perception and the ideology of the developmentalism. Although there were growing religious literatures that more transformative and sensitive to their experiences, but there is still much to work with, in particular in dealing with special cases such as women with disabilities in a pandemic context. And still in between commonality and incommensurability, our informants reveal the power of self-religious or spiritual mobilization. They construct their spirituality within the social solidarity, more intensified during the pandemic. They contrast their own spirituality through redefining the meaning of hikmah, for example, or wisdom, and trust or tawakal perceive the pandemic as blessings in disguise, as they have opportunities to remanage their lives, making stronger social connection also, more hygienic environments, and becoming more creative to survive the daily challenges. These spiritualities are not an instant product of religious spontaneity, but their marginal situation in the pre-pandemic provided a stronger base for the present resilience and also endurance. For the conclusion here, we have women are vulnerable, but the social transformation made by women indeed prominent, and then they maintaining social cohesion and resilience in community and also in domestic level, also maneuvering within the persistent gender ideology, and limited religious meaning making for the women real and performance is rather frustrating, but in particular for women in with disabilities. And then we have suggestions here: greater appreciation of women's contributions, including religious recognition of their important role in shaping domestic religiosity, and for strategic actors for community endurance. And after all that we have described, we invite you to support women, to endorse women. How to do it, please do let us know. And one note that I will never forget when presenting these results of this research at ICRS last year, International Symposium on Religious Life organized by the Ministry of Religious Affairs, is the input from the discussion. Dr. Siti Samsyatun from UIN, Sunan Kalijogo, and she is the former director of ICRS also. She said that talking about women, studied about women, it must involve men, because how could the situation of women will change if men didn't change too. So that is why in this research we invite male researchers from various regions, and also to Pak Leo as the leader. I hope so we can work together, men and women, on addressing these issues. Okay, so I will stop here, and we invite you to ask questions and give comments or add something to improve our research. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mbak Ida. I think you may stop the screen sharing. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I don't want to add anything to that presentation. I think it's really comprehensive, and just invite you to respond, provide comments and criticism or challenging our methodology and so on. Please, you may raise your hand, or if you have a problem with connection, you may put your question in the chat box. Please, the forum is open.
Pak Leo, you don't want to add something about this research?
Oh yeah, okay. While we waiting, okay, let's see if there's no, okay. If there's no response yet, yes, I just want to add some, some little bit issues. For example, the Hakka one, in fact, it is an experiment for us to touch upon the women with disabilities, because it's not much literature, especially in Indonesian context. Secondly, also with the micro minority, the Hakka women. Hakka is the sub-ethnic groups of Chinese in Indonesia. If we tend to see Chinese is a single entity, single category, but in fact there's plenty and different kind of Chinese traditions in Indonesia. We have Hokkien, we have Konghu or Cantonese, we have Hakka, and so on. Indonesian is predominantly Hokkien-ist. That's why we have the term such as Konghucu. That's a Hokkien-ist term, not Mandarin. And also Tionghoa. Tionghoa is a Hokkien-ist term. I think here we have the expert of Chinese, Ibu Linda. Linda Busan just finished her PhD dissertation and examination, close examination. She is more expert than me, but I just want to mention that Hakka is micro minorities, very small, smaller than larger Chinese community. So this is first time for us to engage with them. In fact, it's many interesting points we learn from, and also the disabilities are rather challenging because it's not easy to have access or having people who ready to share their experience, especially the time we doing research. May to August is considered as the still in euphoria of pandemic. So people not really manage their life properly. Many things not settled yet. So it's not easy for us to access to these groups. But fortunately, we have some insight from them. Okay, I see here Febrima Yuliana, Ibu Febrima Yuliana, please. Ini Mbak Febrima ya, Surabaya ya. Okay, please, if there are any question. Unmute your microphone.
Izinkan saya berbicara dalam bahasa Indonesia karena saya takut tidak bisa mengungkapkan pertanyaan dengan baik.
You don't have to use English. I don't understand Indonesian. Okay, please silakan Mbak Febrima.
I'll try to speak in English. For the first time, I say thank you so much for the material because I got so many lessons from this. I want to ask one question, or maybe two questions. First, is it the research reveal about the woman's spirituality at family, about worship? I'm a Christian, so almost 1 year or more than 1 year, I pray in online worship, and I think it will influence much things, especially when in pandemic we face so many burdens, like Miss Ida said before. So is it the research reveal about the spirituality, about worship for women in the family especially, and how women support their family, or for single women, how they support other member like parents or brother, sister. Is it reveal about that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mbak Febrima. Please, Mbak Ida. Unmute dulu, Mbak.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Febrima, for asking the question. We also asked this question to the expert meeting at that time about how the family addressing the spiritual, how they can worship in the in pandemic with the online platform. And we have an answer from the Muslim and also from the Christian that for example, in Christian, Ibu Tapita at the time said that they use Misa online, so they like the women in the house, in the family, like the mother, or like ngopra-opra, what it's called, Pak Leo, encourage, ask the family member to join the mass online at that time. And for the Muslim, it's interesting because both the expert at the time at FGD said that in the family, like Ibu Samsiatun and also Bu Alim, both from the Muhammadiyah. They are very progressive. They not only encourage or ngoprak-oprak untuk beribadah, but also they share their knowledge in religious knowledge to other family members, or even to their husbands, because they are work for the Universitas Islam that really dealing with religious knowledge, and the husband is not, so they can transfer the knowledge to the kepala keluarga, the imam on that family. In, as we know that suami adalah kepala keluarga in Indonesian family, so it's like women give knowledge to men in this case. So maybe it can answer your question. Maybe Pak Leo can add something.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Febrima, thank you, Mbak Ida. Yeah, I just want to add just a little bit. So there is a rebalancing situation in some cases. Of course, not all cases, but in some cases we encounter that there is a rebalancing of roles. That's male and female is become in the situation is more equal position. And also the story mentioned by Ida is mentioned that since the household spirituality is, for some families, is handled by the mother, then when the father is coming back to the home because of work from home or because the disciplines of their job, then the mother can negotiate their religious authority in that situation. That's what Mbak Ida is talking about. And but we also found, we start our report with the disproportionate women burden, not only burdens, but disproportionate, which means that they have to handle many more things. Of course, they got new authority, but at the same time is a burden. So that's what we found. Of course, again, our 68 representation cannot truly represent the entire experience of women, but we learn from them that kind of situation. Begitu. Do you want to add more respond, Mbak Febrima?
Thank you. Is it reducing their spirituality when they have so much burdens? So is it influence their spirituality because of all of the burdens in the pandemic? Especially the research is happened at May till August. It's still in the new beginning of the pandemic.
Yes. Mbak Ida, please.
Yeah, at that time we are struggling with that. We also still searching how we will deal with this kind of situation. And I thought that this is the best way for us to stay connected with God, with the religious institutions, with the online platform. So but I don't really know that is it influence on how deep and how close to the God or the or increasing the spirituality or not, but this kind of habit come to make them stay close to the God, and this is how and also for as a base to cope with the pandemic.
again, just to add, Ida, one thing we found that's the disappearance of me time, the loss of me time, and then the me time is shifting to, for example, in one of our informer in Bali, okay, my me time is moved to more deeper night, deeper evening. Then yeah, that's the kind of spiritual space as well. And also that's already mentioned by Mbak Ida, for the women activists, the nuns in Ruteng in Manggarai, they truly found more spirituality because they having a more challenging situation, but which mean for them is a more possible for spiritual shape for them. Thank you, Mbak Febrima. Then we have question from Thailand, or from Ibu Maya from Thailand. Good afternoon. My name is Maya from Thailand. I really appreciate the speaker for echoing the issue of women vulnerability in Southeast Asia. I myself currently conduct a research on women vulnerability in Lower Mekong Basin, impacted from the Chinese dams. And this talk connects to my research in many ways. I have one question for our beautiful speaker. Are there any ways to understand the root causes of the women vulnerability, and how do you perceive the dynamic situation in the politics of religion in Indonesia to the current pandemic situation of women vulnerability in Manggarai? Thank you so much, and I miss you, Mbak Ida Fitri. Oh, your friend, Mbak Ida. So
Yeah.
please, Mbak Ida, respond to Mbak Maya.
Okay, thank you, Maya. This is one of my friends in ARI batch 2015. Thank you for the question. About the root causes vulnerable. Maybe first is the double burden that we face when in the pandemic era, in the pandemic time, that was because this research, especially for the women workers, so it's like we have a double burden. We have to work at home, from home, and also have also stay at home to deal with the domestic or household matters. So it made women more exhausted, and then cause also the roller coaster emotions. And they also, like Pa Leo said, that we lack of the me time to relieve of this burden. And also in some cases they face the domestic violence. It's not only about the sexual violence, but also the economic and psychological violence because of the situation, husband that not work anymore. And then the women have extended our activities, like for example, women with as a tiba-tiba menjadi entrepreneurship, they sell, they make food, they very active, very productive, and then but the husband's not, and then sometimes the husband like apa sih Pak Leo namanya, their masculinity is
Masculinity,
yeah, it's like a challenge by the women, by the
pandemic situation.
And then it sometimes it causes also domestic violence to the woman. It's said like it's said by the Komnas Perempuan or National Commission on Violence Against Women. I think that one. And about the current pandemic situation of women vulnerability in Manggarai, yeah, the pandemic make them not really easy to move like the time before. So they they use new ideas, new action. So still they can providing help for the community, and also creating mix online and offline to support the members of the community. Also women in Manggarai, they found that they more spiritual empowerment and meaningful life, because they align their job with the religious values and also with the community to cope this pandemic together with the community. And I thought that one of the things that we see from the activists in Manggarai, we hope that the researchers from Manggarai Romo Max Rigor are here with us, but not, yeah, Pak Leo.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mbak Ida. Maybe you can address the question from Mbak Maya about the root cause of vulnerability, women vulnerability.
Oh, I already answered it about the root causes vulnerable. Of one is the double burden for the double burden that women then have to face in this pandemic as a workers and also for household maintenance. And then it makes exhausted, lack of me time, and cause roller coaster emotions, I said.
Yeah. Thank you, Mbak Ida. Another question from...
It's free for Pak Leo to add something, because this is...
Oh, yeah. I just want to add... in fact, the situation is pre-pandemic. Pandemic is only a kind of the trigger of many issues that's already happening before the pandemic. For example, the system itself, the violence that's getting higher and higher, violence against women. And the marker, we found that, for example, the Prolegnas, the national legislation program on sexual violence bill, rancangan undang-undang penghapusan kekerasan seksual, is terminated during the pandemic. There's no progress. We don't know up until when. So that's one way, if we want to understand the root of the vulnerability is already systemic, even before the pandemic situation. That's, I think. Gitu ya, Mbak Ida, ya?
Yes.
Okay, there is a question from, I hope, Mbak Maya, okay, with the response. Oh yeah, thank you, Mbak. Okay, from Bu Jenny, is there any information about how women with young children are coping spiritually and physically with their children's education, as they are also required to be a teacher as well? Yeah, Mbak Ida.
Yeah.
I think we have several in our interview.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bu Jenny, for delivering the question. Yeah, we have findings from the informants that the women with young children, yang masih sekolah, they have to be a teacher at home. So it's some of them face difficulties, but for the young children from senior high school to up, they can learn by themselves. But for children with the elementary and also junior high school, it will be problem for the women, because they have to study again to have the children to commit with the school from home.
Yeah. But also, the challenge is even more, Bu Jenny, because especially family with very limited space in physical space, and also economic challenge, it's even more.
Yeah.
But also I found because I interviewed the person, she said that because her husband have to work in other places, then on the other way around, the husband give more attention to their family and they have a more time together virtually to maintain many things. So for example, usually everything depends on the mother. This is a working mother. I interview a working mother. But because the husband is working in Jakarta and the wife is in Yogyakarta, having 3 boys, having 3 sons, then very challenging because they're still minors. Usually it's entirely the wife's affair. But because of pandemic and a more digital connection, having more exposure to digital connection, then now the husband can ask directly to the sons. So you can see there's another negative situation, but also some positive situation as well. But again, it's very challenging, especially for family that's very limited economic situation. Begitu Bu Jenny.
Maybe I want to add one more, Pak Leo, regarding to these issues. So family with limited space at home, sometimes they have to divide the home with to work, to study, for husband, wife, work at home at the same time, at the same place. So it's like a very crowd, noisy, and difficult to focus, and sometimes it make a tense, even conflict with this kind of situation, education and also working from home. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Bu Jenny, if you want to, you may, if you want to, response back. Okay, then we move to Mbak Evi, Selvi Triani Kula, talking about women's spirituality, how far the religious values help them or limit them in dealing with their vulnerability.
Yeah, maybe I answer this, Pak Leo.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Selvi. Religion, the spirituality in this pandemic, yeah, the women elevate themselves in religious and maintaining stronger relationship among the family members. Like I said before, women, apa sih Pak Leo ngoprak-oprak itu dalam bahasa Inggris?
Urge.
Urge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apa, rushing atau apa?
Ya, semacam itu.
Pushing.
To urge, ya. Yeah.
Okay. To pushing to ask the family member to join the mass online worship, ibadah di rumah, begitu ya. And also interesting for the women with disability, because they experience greater challenge and also challenge and then they apa ya namanya, hold their spirituality that turn and in turn help them to cope with the pandemic. Like I said before, they redefining some of the wisdoms in the religious teachings, like sabar, tawakal, and also thinking that this is kind of a
blessing in disguise.
In disguise, yes. Thank you, Pak Leo, to with it. Yeah. Is it enough, Mbak Selvi?
Okay, Mbak Evi. Okay, so yeah, I take it as is sufficient. The last one so far from Mbak Ani. Thank you, Mbak Ida, for your presentation. I happen to know about a women-based organization called PEKA, or Perempuan Kepala Keluarga. The issue of women vulnerabilities often due to the patriarch tradition that oftentimes translated literally into politics, into policies that are not gender balance friendly. How do you see such issue? Please, Mbak Ida.
Thank you, Mbak Ani. Maybe this is kind of new for me. This organization PEKA, or Perempuan Kepala Keluarga, and I just know that the issue of this kind of thing, women vulnerabilities, translated literally into policies that are not gender balance friendly. Maybe this is new for me. Maybe you can share something with us here with me, for especially because I really don't know with these issues.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Ida. Yeah, we in our report we mentioned not about patriarchy specifically, but gender ideology, which means insufficient. For example, it's not only about patriarchy. It's give the primacy toward male or men, but it's also about the lack of religious infrastructure to support women's role. Even though there's a pandemic, it's very critical, drastic changings of life, but it seems, of course, it's very limited observation from us. It seems that from the religious infrastructure in this regard, theology or precepts and so on, it seems that it's just as usual, business as usual. Even though there's a rebalancing situation, there's extra burden, there is extra demand. Yeah, we started our report with the strains Hari Kartini, April 21st last year, that's like glorifying women, especially women's leadership in many countries that can cope with pandemics much better than male leadership. But in the same time, the women demands too much. So that's what we call gender ideology. I think it's including patriarchy mentality, but it is that far. And again, I mentioned that prolegnas postponing the discussion of RUU PKS, ya, rancangan undang-undang penghapusan kekerasan seksual. That's another proof of the strong gender ideology still running in this country. That's my additional response.
And also, Pak Leo, this research, I think, as a contribution to see the details, what happened with the women during the pandemic. So it's kind of like a findings, and also we can share it to others that we have details on how women cope with the pandemic in the domestic and also in external affairs. And as I said before, that the input from the discussion from Bu Siti Samsiaton, that we have to working together with men to make it possible, also to be the policy someday. So we have to involve men also to think about and take action regarding this situation, regarding to follow up these kind of findings that we already have here.
Thank you, Mbak Ida. Mbak Ani, do you want to respond back? No? Okay, then the last one from Pak Agus. Yeah. Pak Agus from Atmajaya. Media blow up the issue about the increase of domestic violence and childhood marriage during the pandemic. Does your research find these issues also? Mbak Ida, please.
Yeah, not specific on the domestic violence and childhood marriage during the pandemic. Because we want to see how they maneuver and cope the pandemic with not really on the domestic violence, but the expert from the FGD that we already conducted before the research begins say that Ibu Alim on the time mentioned about the laporan from Komnas Perempuan about Komnas Perempuan conducted of an online survey that but I don't have the exact number, and also I don't know because we don't really go into it. But yes, there are violent domestic violence increasing during the pandemic. Not only the physical or sexual, but also physical, as psychological, and also economical.
Yeah. Also the increasing of online pornographic abuse.
All right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Agus, do you want to respond back? How about somebody just open your mic and say something?
Ya, oke. Thank you, Mas Leo.
Ya, bagus.
Mbak Ida, selamat Kartini ya. Oke.
Terima
Thank
kasih,
you.
Pak.
Yeah, so when I read media, for example, Kompas, and these 2 days, there are a number of childhood marriage and then domestic violence and so on and so on. But of course, this affect women also, right? Mostly affect women, and perhaps you have special attention to that or something. But I mean this that actually. But it's okay if that's not your focus. It's okay, Mbak Ida. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah. Okay.
Ida, do you want to respond a little about that? Because this about methodology as well. Our research question and methodology. Do you want to respond?
Okay, that's good.
Mbak Ida?
Yeah.
Do you want to respond? Because Pak Agus also asking indirectly about our methodology and our research questions. How we focusing on?
Oh yeah, because we are only focused on the condition of social spaces and practices among private, semi-private, public, online and offline, and also domestic and matters, and also the research question that we want to know. There are 4 questions that we want to answer at that time. First is maybe I can share again.
Yeah, please, Mbak.
Okay. Wait. Sorry. So these are the research question, how Indonesian women responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, and also how Indonesian women maneuvering among spaces, like I said before, public, domestic, virtual, online and offline, and so on. And how does religion reimagine Indonesian women and women's status within the context of pandemic, and also how religion shapes women's religiosity within the context of pandemic. So yeah, we really not engage with the Bapak question.
Yeah, but I think we can add a little bit, yeah, Mbak Ida, because we have informants in Bali that many of the husbands were suffered of layouts. Sorry, call layouts apa? PHK, layoffs. So yeah, so they indirectly we sense that some tensions happening in the household. So for example, we have one professor in one university in Bali that her husband was somebody, not him, not her, but somebody, that she has to acting as a psychological consultant for her husband, kind of that. So we probably not directly testified, or they were not testified directly about the domestic violence, but we sense that some tensions happening in the household because many of the husbands simply cannot work, and many of them were apa namanya not habitually living in the house. Now they have to live in the house and doesn't have any meaningful activities. So the tension is increasing. So they are very hesitant. Even though they're not violent in the sense of they are simply like to beat his wives, but the tensions were there because they don't know what to do in the household. They're usually doing something else outside. While we mentioned in our report that the situation is terbalik, is opposites. Now women has to expose to the public space. We found, for example, women has to sell food using motorcycles, and the husbands attending in the household with the children, then they don't really know what to do. So something like that. The tensions were there, but we don't have direct evidence about the domestic violence during our research among the 68 women we interview and listening to.
Yeah. So, and also, I also mentioned earlier that because the women more active, more productive, more creative, and then the men are challenged, and
their masculinity.
is challenged, and sometimes it causes domestic violence, psychological, sexual, physical, etc.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Agus. Just curious, the research will be sounded to the authorities to influence policy. Okay, thus far, bagaimana Mbak Ida? Are we going to put this in policy recommendation or something like that? All depends on Mbak Ida. Mbak Ida is the...
Saya tergantung Pak Leo.
Yeah, we will ask Mbak Ani to help us as well too.
Yeah, this is very good if we can make it more apa ya, lebih
Sounding, yeah.
Yeah. And we can sound it to the community and also the authorities.
In fact, our research is only one, right? among many research with women's that we found. After our research there, we somehow encounter several other research as well. We found, for example, in the last years, the research specifically toward women's professors, women that's teaching in university, women's teachers universities, or university teachers that's having different kind of burden, have exposed to different kind of vulnerability. So they have to provide, for example, they have to provide academic papers while they have to handle household affairs. They have to pursue their own career, but at the same time has to handle their own husband. So something like that. So even having different dimension of vulnerability, something like that. So our picture is bleak, in fact, and regardless their creativity, their more exposure to the virtual world, for example, or public space. And we also encounter women initiative to organize a local school for underprivileged children. This is the case of Madiun by Mas Ernesto. But at the same time, they also doubled their vulnerability. So that's why our recommendation is to having more appreciation to their work, and especially for you, as if you are part of the religious authorities, please say something about women, because this is not business as usual. I already did that. If to respond to Mbak Ani, I already did that by I became one of the speaker of the webinar, and among the Christians, and in the Christianity we have the idea of house of father, rumah bapa. Then I push further by now we need to talk about rumah ibu, house of mother, because we find that the dalil, we find of the justification in the Bible as well, even though it's very subversive. It's not wasn't become majority of understanding. It is only minority opinion, but it was there. There's 3 passages in the Bible talking about house of women, which is very positive. House of women creating more creative women, according to the scripture. So that's what we recommend to the religious authority, Pak Agus, as a guru agama, also a professor of religious studies, Pak Kiki, and Pak siapa lagi nih, Pak Jeko, and so on. Please say something about women roles, because they are, our specific term is disproportionately challenged. They are demanded more than people demand the male.
Yeah, I hope on Romo Max Regus in Manggarai, because he hold authorities on that area. So we hope to these findings can be influence the policy in the Catholic Church in Manggarai. And also we are not yet thinking to approach the authority about this, ya Pak Leo, but we already share this research on papers. Maybe we have 3 papers about 4 papers, academic papers from this research. And also we will share in more casual, in
more popular,
more casual, to get a widened audiences. We just developed a piece of writing about this, and also we already share it in TV, in Jogja Istimewa TV, maybe 2 weeks ago, a talk show about this, and I shared these findings to the TV Jogja audiences.
So thank you very much, Mbak Ani, for your suggestion to spread out these findings. Thank you very much. We still have about 15 minutes. Is there any concern, comments, response, questions, please?
Mbak Ani, add something. This is such interesting research. I believe you can submit it to the policymaker, and it will affect so many vulnerable women across the country. So, okay, thank you for the support and encouragement, Mbak Ani. We will think about it and need your support, of course. We cannot live without you, Mbak Ani. And also one more, Pak, itu from Mbak Selfie.
Oh,
you have a
yes.
question about redefining tawakal.
Redefining the tawakal, yes, especially among the women with disabilities.
Yeah.
Is there any, Mas Aziz, is there any comments from the YouTube that we can respond as well here? If no more, so I think we simply conclude this meeting. And please, Mbak Ida, please the final word for all of us, encouraging word for all of us about women in Hari Kartini. This is going to be very monumental and it's going to be very important for women today. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Leo, and all the audience here, friends and colleagues. Maybe in this occasion on the commemorating Kartini Day, I would like to share these findings and also want to ask or invite you to support women. We can work together. We have to think about it and take an action. And I already start with the campaign by myself, like hashtag vulnerable but maneuverable women in social media. So it's kind of like a milestone for me also to start to do this thing based on this research. So it's like the moral that I have to do, follow up from myself personally based on this research. So please do let us know if you have suggestion, comments, etc. to make this happen in the future. Thank you, Pak Leo.
Okay, thank you very much, Mbak Ida. So, in fact, I want to thank especially to Mbak Jessie, but Mbak Jessie is already departed from this room. Okay, but anyway, thank you to any of the supporter of this program, Pak Zen, Bu Irma, no more Bu Irma, but also our friends in Aceh, Mas Jafar, Bang siapa namanya, di Pontianak, Bandri, dan Max Regus, Pak Deni, Mbak Maurisa, Mbak Jessie, Mbak Ali, dan Mbak siapa? Lintang for their service, Mas Eresto as well to help us out to make this research is possible and also hopefully it's fruitful and beneficial for our society. So thank you very much. I think, Mas Aziz, do you want to announce something for our next meeting? Beforehand, give our best appreciation to Mbak Ida for her presentation.
Thank you, Pak Leo. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you for your question as well. Mas Aziz, is there any announcement for next meeting? Is there still have a Wednesday forum or we, Mas Aziz? Wake up, Mas. Okay, anyway, so thank you very much. So we have to stop our meeting today. So don't forget to follow our Instagram, our Facebook, so we can have a new information about new meeting next week, in the Wednesday forum. So keep safe and give our best regards to your family as well, and have a best Ramadan Karim for you that's fasting this month. Hopefully your spiritual journey is rewarding. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Ini nggak ada Aziz ya?
Ya kayaknya bobo siang.
Iya. Hashtag vulnerable but maneuverable women.
Oke. Oke ya, terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih.
Ya, Mbak Febrima ini penyuluh agama
Oh, oke.
dari Surabaya.
Salam kenal, Mbak.
Bukan, penyuluh agama ya.
Ya,
Iya,
jadi ikut
salam
terus.
kenal.
Iya, terima kasih banyak ya,
Ini di
Mbak.
kantor ya, pakai masker. Lagi di kantor ya?
Iya. Di kantor. Makanya pakai masker.
Oh, pakai
Surabaya
masker.
ya, Mbak ya?
Ya, ada Ibu Linda juga dari Surabaya itu.
Oh ya, Linda dari Petra.
Iya, di Surabaya.
Oke deh ya, saya pamit dulu. Sampai ketemu lagi. Terima
Salam kenal,
kasih
Bunda.
semuanya.
Ini kita tinggal aja nih Aziz nih.